Oh, yeah. Yeah, when we. I promise I'll give it back.
And just shy of 3/4 of an inch there in Yuba City. Blue Canyon was seeing rain most of the day, switched it.
There we go. Um, Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out in a quasi monsoon in the wind. We're going to restart our meeting. It's our March meeting, the El Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee. I'm the chair, John Davey, Vice Chair Tim White, Vice Chair John Raslier. I don't see Vice Chair Brooke Washburn yet, but she'll jump in virtually, and Secretary Bill Jamaica. So thank you again for coming out tonight. It's been a busy week in this building. We had the scoping meeting for Costco here on Monday, and a lot of us were here for that. But as we begin our meeting tonight, the first thing, and again, I say it's hard to drive and and talk. So let me throw this up on the screen, and there we go. Okay, so we call the meeting in order, identified our officers, adoption of the meeting agenda. Officers, are there any changes you propose for tonight, or?
No.
All right. Make this go fast. So as we begin our meetings, we have an opportunity for public comment for matters that are not on our agenda. So if there's anything that you want to speak to tonight that is not on our agenda, your opportunity is now. We have a microphone over there, and we have a podium. This is where our guest speakers will be. But if you have one of these microphones, this microphone is not for the room. It's for our Zoom recording and for our Zoom attendees. When it's green, you're good to talk. You just push it, turns green, talk away. So with that, I would ask if there's any public comment for matters not on our agenda tonight. Yes.
Am I to speak at the end of the meeting about my issue?
I can bring it up. If you want to go now, we'll do it now. It's at the end. I left it there just in case I didn't know where you wanted to be. You want to wait? Okay. All right. So, Dean, you want to grab like this one over here, or is there a microphone near you? I don't know where else the
Linda has one.
Oh, Linda has one. Okay. Oh, there's one in the stand, as long as it's green.
Good evening, Dean Getz, Eldorado County taxpayer. Oh, you just told us push button. Good evening, Dean Getz, Eldorado County taxpayer. Number one, I wanted to compliment the committee here in its effort to address the most recent Serrano development, the Village M5, which, for those of you that don't know, that's El Dorado Hills Specific Plan Parcel 33. It's part of the El Dorado Hills Specific Plan and the Serrano Owners Association since inception, 1995. What I want to highlight is the shortcomings and how the entire county is being shortchanged, and specifically El Dorado Hills, as it relates to the county's oversight, some of which that you've been highlighting, some of which I've highlighted, and I think putting the pieces together really is something that needs to stand the test of time going forward so it doesn't continue. Number one, for those of you that don't know, to get beyond the ad valorem tax, special taxes, that's CFDs, community facilities districts, and LLADs, special assessments, require a vote of the landowners or the registered property owners. And the calculation of those taxes is done by a licensed engineer, civil engineer. And in the case of the Serrano LLAD, it was formed as a shell. And the shell, I think we've had a lot of discussion about what is a shell and are they legal? And the shell was created at the behest of the developer who acted as the engineer at the time. And what they effectively said is that the benefit, the specific benefit, which Mr. Davey is grappling with throughout the El Dorado Hills CSD, is 100% assigned to the association itself. No general benefit. So quickly, you taking that assumption, you push all of the streetscapes on the public roads, that's Serrano Parkway, Silva Valley, to the homeowners association, which isn't 100% benefit any way you cut it, but how it arrived there. That shift was accomplished in part by getting the Department of Real Estate to modify the CCNRs. Now remember, this isn't Serrano specific, this happens in other areas. Think Saratoga most recently, think Bass Lake Hills. But that being said, the DRE made it permissible for public property to be cared for in the CCNRs. That's not paid for, but cared for. And that condition was also dovetailing the California Constitution, which is better described in Streets and Highways Code, that all the benefiting property must pay for the public property that's being cared for. The developer, again, I told you, not a licensed engineer, was acting as the engineer for the CSD at the time, back when we were in our early days here of being big time. And they failed to put all the property. In fact, half of the property wasn't included, and that resulted in a letter by the former general manager, Kevin Lowen, to the Department of Real Estate identifying, we really messed up, and we've messed up since shortly after 1995, and to this day, and that issue remains an issue where public property isn't deeded to the public as it was required, and assessment parcels that weren't included when they should have been still haven't been included. And the complications go on from there. I wanted to highlight that the assessment scheme in Serrano is a commencement not on a phase by phase, but a scheme whereby as annexed, all the property shall pay, because all the property was supposed to be in the LLAD from the get-go. So there shouldn't be any new annexations. And that actually is visible in DRE records where it was originally proposed phase by phase. The public property got shoved into the HOA, and we changed the assessment scheme from phase by phase to as annexed, and the explicit statement, all the property shall pay to the master basic, which is where the maintenance of the public property is to be covered. The HOA has year in and year out said all the property participates and shall pay, but yet that's not true. And I've highlighted, I'll be speaking tomorrow about Village M5 hasn't paid, even though it's been a member and since 2009 been a Class A homeowner equivalent member, because there is no other class of membership. Since 2004 hasn't paid anything at all, in violation of the California Constitution, in violation of the CCNRs explicitly, and is now something that the county and the CSD are facing. And what I wanted to highlight and what needs to stand the test of time is that if that condition of approval, which stood in the beginning, had been repeated with every submittal, we would never have lost sight and these problems wouldn't be here roosting decades later, where we have all of these improper public reports issued by the Department of Real Estate for which they don't want to deal with. They're materially misstated. You got public reports issued by the Department of Real Estate for Lennar, you name the builder or the would-be builder in Village M5, where it says you're part of the Serrano LLAD, but you're not actually, for which Kevin Lowen had to do a mea culpa. I mentioned briefly that Lowen wrote that the original LLAD remains intact without any annexed landscaped areas or additional parcel payers, because Parker didn't include all of them. One of the landscaped areas that didn't make it where it belongs, it was a 2021 $1.7 million reimbursement for Sienna Ridge at the Bass Lake end of Serrano Parkway. The CSD, in its infinite wisdom, forwent taking that property. They wrote something to the effect of, if we ever wanted ownership, we would put it in the CFD 2019-01, making future owners pay for it, not Serrano owners, which would be another wrong. And the lack of those inclusions culminates in potentially a tax exemption nullification for the county, because we have too much publicly funded, privately owned property. You can't, the IRS doesn't allow you to go out and give away money and make it tax exempt and allow Parker to develop Parker's property tax exempt. I just wanted to highlight again that the county's planning department and those that are overseeing the county have to understand that these conditions of approval need to carry forward, much like you guys put your agendas together, where If you don't finish an item, it comes back the following month as unfinished business. I'll be speaking to that. Again, kudos to you guys for a thorough review of this particular Village M5 for many other areas. And I hope in the future, because I can tell you the CFD 2019, and while I'll bring that up, I'm over my 3 minutes, I'm sure, and thank you very much. That wasn't formed properly. That is a problem that actually turns out to be an opportunity. Undeveloped property throughout the community has been exempted improperly forevermore through the CFD 2019 by one landowner vote. That can only be accomplished by the vote of the taxpayers in the community to allow them to be exempted. And it actually violates the CSD's written policy. And it actually violates the California Constitution again, that we don't have a case where property that benefits from the care and maintenance of the public property is exempted, but for very limited exceptions. Thank you very much for the extended time.
Thank you, Dean. And as Dean pointed out, several of us volunteer on the CSD's LID Advisory Committee. Come see us on March 26th at the CSD. So there's a lot to learn there and a lot to understand. So are there any other comments in the room?
Hi, I'm Jonathan Liu. I'm one of the parents of one of the students at Oak Meadow, and I understand that you already talked about Costco the last meeting, but just wanted to further raise this thing about the Costco thing because it's a serious concern to a number of parents of the students there. At the point where we're measuring potential dollars in income against the health and safety of children, that's kind of maybe we're asking the wrong questions. But yeah, just wanted to further talk about how that's a serious concern for the health and safety of the students there. As I understand, the gas station is actually planned to be right next to the elementary school, which is crazy to me. I'm sure it's not as easy as just rotating the plan so that it's further away, but I mean.
Yeah, we have some items on that tonight, but we'll discuss a bit. I would encourage anybody, a lot of people showed up for the Costco scoping meeting, and anybody who wants to volunteer to work with us as volunteers, because that's all we are. We have no land use authority, but I encourage you to participate. Our email addresses are on our agenda, and also there's an email address on our website. But anybody who wants to work on it when we start looking for the draft EIR to come back and make comments, because we only get, we'll talk about it a little bit, 45 days, but we'll ask for 60. But anybody wants to help, because it takes a lot of people to go through that. And you might have something highlighted that we wouldn't have seen, or maybe we forgot. So I appreciate you coming tonight.
I have a suggestion for you. Have you contacted the PTAs in the different schools, the elementary schools that are going to be there, and get them involved in this process?
I haven't personally done so, but I can.
That would be the place to go. I tried, and a ways back, they didn't have any interest. Maybe they now do.
Yeah, I believe there's been some discussion, but I don't know where they're at with it. So I was talking to them. Thanks. All right. And we'll talk a little bit more about that scoping meeting that happened. It's later in our agenda. So let's see. More that I'm going to go ahead and I got to jump over here. Sorry. Let me stop this so I can see what I'm doing. Ivan, you should be able to unmute now.
Thank you. Hi. Yes, my comment was also going to be on the new development in Costco and the road there. So I'll just wait until later.
Okay. Well, stand by. Thank you, Ivan.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So there's no more comments online, no more in the room. We'd like to remind everybody how you become a voting member of APAC. We start by saying if you live in El Dorado Hills, you're a member of APAC. But if you want to be a voting member and vote on our project reviews or what we submit to the county, or to vote a bunch of us yahoos to sit up here and drive, you do that by volunteering to work on a project review or a subcommittee or an ad hoc. And we have a process right now, and I remind people all the time, it's entirely possible you might have a better process than one we're using. And we welcome any input, and anybody who wants to volunteer as much time as you have available or as little time as you have available. So I've made that reminder. Moving along. Up next, supervisor communications. I know Greg's here. There's Greg, and you know where the microphone's at. So District 1 Supervisor Greg Ferrero's here. And I know that when it's time, it looks like Bob Williams is here to help for Supervisor Turnbull, who can't be here tonight. So Greg, is that on? Is it green? Should turn. Just push it once.
There we go.
Cool.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, George is at a ribbon cutting.
Yeah.
Over in the business park tonight. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Greg Ferrero. I guess 2 months in, and a new supervisor for District 1. And don't really think I could have chosen a worse time to start this position. There's just so much going on, and none of it's positive. The county's running a deficit, and as of now, we're estimating $18 to $20 million for next year. It will probably, I'm guessing it's probably going to get worse with the May revise when the state comes out with their revised budget. So we're looking at our discretionary spending and how we can cut that. And because the county has there's mandatory programs that we have to have that are mandated either by the state, federal government, or by an election. And then there's discretionary programs that we do to provide services to the public. And some of those discretionary programs enhance the mandated programs. So we're looking at all the discretionary programs, everything from some programs in health and human services, for things like senior daycare programs, all the way to, we're going to be looking at, we have a juvenile detention facility up in Lake Tahoe. We're looking at possibly closing. It's the only one in the county, and we're spending about $4.5 million a year on it, and we're housing about 10 to 15 juveniles a night. So it's a lot of money. We could contract it out, but my priority for the county is public safety, and cutting things like that is going to be difficult. But those are the things, and we're looking at big things, and possibly eliminating positions down the road, depending on what happens with this revise with the state in June. So it's not a good time for the county. It's the first time we've dealt with this in probably 20 years. So we're dealing with that. We had a pretty lengthy discussion at our board meeting yesterday, and originally the staff provided the supervisors 3 or 4 pages of line items of what's discretionary in the county and broken up by different departments. And for me personally, being in 2 months, new to this, it would be, and not familiar with all of these programs, it'd be like I said it yesterday, throwing darts at a dartboard to see how you want to save money. So we decided to send it back to the departments and let them try to streamline costs and maybe consolidate programs, especially administrative functions, where maybe 2 departments can share administrative resources, and have them come back to us next month with their recommendations, and then we would approve it. We're also looking at cutting funding to outside agencies. Like we provide money for a swimming pool in the city of Placerville that we fund the city every year. And it just, we're just looking at the whole gamut of things and how we can save money. Yeah, locally here, CSD issues, which didn't intend to get involved with, but we might be. So we'll find out more about the CSD tomorrow night. Development-wise, the Planning Commission is going to be making a decision discussing the M5 project that Dean was referring to earlier. It's up on Aberdeen, across from the Sangiovese gate in the Serrano gate. And so it's going to the Planning Commission tomorrow. Today I got a memo for a pre-application for the Silver Springs project up on Silver Springs in Green Valley. It's another rezone of a subdivision. I think it's zoned R5, and they want to do 27 lots on like 1/4 acres. So that's in the pre-application phase, and I think there's public comment period. We'll send it out on my website, but I think the public comment period goes into mid-April. I forget the exact date. The Town and Country Hotel proposal, I believe, is coming to the board, our board, on July 22nd. And then, of course, Costco. And the Costco scoping meeting was interesting. It was a packed room here, and there's a lot of concern, especially environmentally, especially with the gas station. So I'm actually meeting with Costco on Friday because I haven't had a detailed presentation on their proposal yet. So I'm looking forward to that. I met with our code enforcement team last week, and fortunately, we don't have a lot of on a daily basis a lot of need for code enforcement. I think it was kind of a lackluster program before, but they've increased the staff, and they want to take a much more proactive approach to enforcing the code laws throughout the county. Everything from swimming pools that aren't fenced or gated or abandoned. I know there's an abandoned house up on a hill up in Ridgeview that they've been dealing with for years that they're going to try to take action on. There's an old, what was it, a Taco Bell that was abandoned for years up in Pollock Pines that we're finally actually eliminating and assuming the property. So they want to take a much more proactive approach to maintain the quality of life for the county. Next week, we're going to be, earlier in the year, but the prior board passed a tobacco ordinance in order to try to prevent smoking, tobacco use with kids, which is a great thing. But what the ordinance didn't consider is the impact on the businesses that sell these products. And so it's going to be on our agenda for on March 25th. We're going to be discussing that and maybe making some changes to that ordinance. And that is all I have, really. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. Yes, ma'am.
So is there a microphone so we could, oh, there you go. As long as you're green, you're good.
Where did the big county deficit come from?
So I think every county is dealing with this.
Because of the state, or?
I think, well, for our counties specifically, they're anticipating property taxes being stagnant at best. And unbeknownst to me, the property tax revenue is enhanced with turning of houses, flipping them. It actually has a bigger impact than just building more houses and adding to the inventory. But so the housing market's stagnant, and for really two reasons. Interest rates are high, so if probably most of you refinanced your house 5 years ago or so, and you have 2-3% interest, and who wants to give that up? So interest rates, and then insurance is the insurance problem in this county, and it's statewide. It's affecting every county, and I really see that getting worse. And I think it's going to have a kind of a snowball effect. If you own $1 million house here and you get dropped by your insurance and you have to use the FAIR plan, which is insolvent now because of LA, the fires in LA, you're gonna, let's say you do get the FAIR plan insurance, you're gonna pay $12,000-15,000 a year as opposed to your $2,000 policy, and you want to sell your house. Well, who's going to buy your house knowing they can't get insurance? So I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And talking to other counties in the state and listening in on webinars from the state, and reading what our insurance commissioner is sending out, there's no solution right now. So yeah, property taxes and sale taxes are stagnant at best also. And then the state says they're funded, but I think it's gonna change in May drastically because of mainly the fires in LA. And so yeah. Yes, ma'am. And then you also have what's going on federally. We don't know what the feds are going to finance the state, and that's going to trickle down to us. So
I know you're new and I know you're not to blame, but I would like you to look into the salaries of chief administrative officer, assistant, etc. Only because when I was involved with the grand jury a few years back, we started looking at that. And you've got these guys getting paid 6 figures. And in my opinion, they could take a cut in their salaries, even if it's a 10% cut. Then you have the rank and file who barely make minimum, that are struggling with today's economy, etc. And on the news it says you guys struggle just to find some people to work the snow issue for this weekend. If we're in a deficit, where did the money come from? And I'm just asking you with fresh eyes to look at this issue, because in addition to the salaries, you've got folks that got promoted to do a job higher than what they're hired for, and yet their duty statement did not change. Now, how can that be if they're accepting additional responsibility and additional salary, but they're not doing anything more than what they were previously? So if you could just
Okay,
take
no, thank you
fresh
for the
eyes.
information. I'm not aware of that. We are, and I can't talk specifically about any of the contracts, but we are every board meeting discussing labor contracts with different.
I get it, but the salaries lead into retirement benefits
No,
at that level.
Yep, no,
that
you're right.
the county will be responsible for.
Yeah, well, and it's a state, it's all, civil organizations.
But it's just my take on it.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks.
You here for the entire meeting?
I don't know. That's your question? You want to get me out in the parking lot or something? Yeah, I'm probably not gonna stay for the whole meeting. So if you want to talk about something in the lobby, I'm happy to do it. Oh, okay. Okay.
Supervisor Ferraro. Hi, Greg. Nice to see you again.
Likewise.
Thank you. And I realize that, like Mary said, you are very busy. There's no question that you're very busy. But I just wanted to say welcome to El Dorado County as a supervisor, and hoping that you continue to grow and develop in your job. That's all I was going to say.
It's like nothing I've ever experienced, and I knew it was going to be difficult, and you don't know what you don't know. And I've been told this, I know Lori Parlin told me when I met with her years ago, she goes, it took me 4 years to figure this job out. And, I'm every week's getting a little more comfortable.
Yes.
But it's just, I find myself in, your face-to-face meetings all day long, and I'm the guy that knows least of any of these meetings. And so, you're expected to be an expert on it. So I'm, handling things, a week at a time, preparing for each board meeting and trying to, read up and, and studying all of the agenda items so I can go in prepared. And yeah, but yeah, thank you, Bill.
You're welcome. Good job. Keep it up.
Are there any more questions in the room?
Just a comment, Greg. Based on what Mary said, look at section 504 of the charter. That's what
Familiar with 504?
I'm sure you are. But remember, that deals with the sheriff's office and the salaries that are required to be paid. Sheriff's office comparison with other counties, and it's in the charter. But what has happened is that equivalent departments in the county, the county council, chief administrative office, several others, as those sheriff's office salaries are increased automatically, pretty much because it's in the charter, the county other departments say, well, if they're getting that, then I also should get an equivalent raise. So they piggyback off that. And that's one of the things that does drive some of the higher salaries that you're seeing throughout the county.
I know there's other departments that want to be part of that charter. And I support the charter. Like I said, I come from a law enforcement background, and with the Highway Patrol, it wasn't a charter, but it was something very similar. We had the average of the 5 largest departments in the state. It was LA County, LA Sheriff, San Diego, San Francisco PD, and Oakland. And we, the California Highway Patrol, we received basic raises or not, we didn't get raises based on what those agencies averaged out at. So I support the charter, but to your point, I agree with you, what you're saying. Also, regarding the sheriffs, I want the best, the most ethical, the most trained sheriffs that we can possibly have. And I also want to hold them accountable. I want them to be indispensable to the community, but hold them accountable and get rid of the bad apples. I appointed a civil service commissioner who, the civil service, if you don't know, they oversee they do the hearings for dismissal appeals. And I appointed a gentleman, Larry Saunders, he was a ranking member at Sacramento Sheriff's, ranking member at Folsom. He's dealt with, POBR violations, and he's hired and fired cops. And I want someone that's going to be strong, that's going to, if there's a bad cop, bad sheriff, we need to get rid of them. But I also want to, reward them for what they do, but hold them accountable. So I do support the charter. I'm not going to deny that. But to your point, there's other agencies that it was intended for the sheriff's department, and I appreciate that.
Greg? Question. Does the county have the money to sweep some of our intersections here on Latrobe and also Silver Valley, because they're in a particularly bad shape, a lot of rocks, trees.
Shoulders.
Yeah. Do you have a sweeper? Do we have a sweeper?
I think we do. And being a cyclist, I'm with you. Okay.
So I would note that when there's a development project, there's more sweeping because that's part of their mitigation as they come through and they clean up the.
Yeah, once.
I don't know. When they built the Santa Ridge Center, we had them for a couple of years. So.
But this is like, if I try to cross White Rock and Latrobe, I mean, the stuff that's down there, I expect to find there's rocks, trees, it's not only a danger to people, but cars, broken windshields, etc.
No, John, I hear you. And
Okay.
like I said,
Thank
I
you, Greg.
do a lot of bike riding, and I'm shocked I'm not getting flats all the time. I remember growing up that, the street sweeper came around like once a month or every couple of weeks in the neighborhoods, and that doesn't happen anymore.
We do have one more question online, and Amy, you should be able to unmute now. Please proceed.
Hi, this is Amy Frith, an Oak Meadow parent. I realize that the Costco item is on the agenda later on, but since you brought it up, that you will be meeting with them on Friday, I'd just like to please ask you to represent your district, which includes the Serrano villages directly surrounding the site, as well as the school. And to the parent in the room who was concerned the school doesn't care, there are many, many, many parents who do care. We were at the scoping meeting. There was not one positive comment in the meeting on Monday. I just want to acknowledge, thank you for saying, Supervisor Ferrero, that there's a lot of concern about the gas station. So I'll speak again later on. Just want to make sure we don't run out of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Well, that was a lot.
No, and regarding Costco, I think it's coming. And so I want to do whatever I can to make it fit in. You're right, the scoping meeting, the room is full. But I got to tell you what, I mean, when I was walking neighborhoods campaigning, overwhelmingly, people want this Costco to come that live in El Dorado Hills.
It'll bring sales tax to the county.
Well, it's definitely going to help that, but that shouldn't be the only reason that it comes. They own the land. It's their by right to build on the land. It's zoned for that. There's questions that, why would you build one 4 miles away? Well, that's their decision. It's their money. I mean, I'm sure they thought about that, and the county can't control that. We can't say, well, we're, you have to go to Missouri Flat. I think they looked up there, they didn't want to go up there. But it's probably coming, and we need to work with them and make it fit in the community. And that's just, I'm going to be honest. I'm being honest with you. And I might be wrong, but that's just today's Greg. And I certainly appreciate that the people that live around there. You're right. I would not want to. The people that live on the ridges, I wouldn't want to look it down at Costco and this, certainly the school is a consideration with the environmental impacts.
Yeah. And as you're saying, they have certain rights right now. Property is entitled to for the big box. So we'll talk about when we get to it. We won't belabor it now, but remind everybody, usually when something happens and people aren't positive about it, they find a lot of negative. Their immediate thing is, how do we stop it? And it's like, well, I don't know that we can. And at APAC, we never review anything to stop anything or to approve anything. We have a project presented to for the community, and we look at it and say, okay, well, this is what they're proposing, and this is what the proposed mitigation is. How can it be better? Can we identify things that we can suggest? Or maybe we just get to the point that we have 3 findings, we do a review. We support it as it's proposed. We provide conditional support and recommend updates, changes, mitigations. That's our typical finding. And the last finding would be, we just, we don't see a way to support it because we don't see the benefit and we don't know that it can be mitigated. So our goal is to find ways to mitigate and have a positive result for the community and a positive result for the landowner or the developer. So it's hard when you start to approach a project. People are motivated by their emotions. And so sometimes we have to just kind of take a breath and go, okay, what are they proposing and how can we approach this? So, you'll be exposed as they present it to you. Actually, it won't even come to you technically.
No, it's not supposed to.
Unless it gets appealed. And we'll talk about that in a little bit.
No,
so.
but I'm not going to stand up here and say, oh, let's see what happens, stuff, and just kick the can down the road. I want to be honest with you. I think it's probably going to come.
Yeah.
And I'm not thrilled with the gas station. I'm going to talk about that. At least maybe moving it towards the freeway more.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, but plant a forest around the backside of that gas station so it buffers the homes that it backs up to. It's just but I got like I said, overwhelmingly, people want it.
Yeah, and the people that are identifying impacts are parents at the school and people who live nearby, and it's valid.
Absolutely valid reasons. Absolutely.
All right. Well,
all right.
We turned this into putting you on the hot spot. Well, thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to turn over, and I think that Bob Williams, our District 2 Planning Commissioner, is here to represent Supervisor Turnbull tonight because you heard Supervisor Turnbull has a conflicting schedule tonight. So, Bob, if you've got something and you're ready to share, please do proceed.
I'll make it very brief because you have a lot to cover, and it's stormy out there, and you all want to go home at a decent hour. Obviously, tomorrow the Planning Commission has 3 items on our agenda. All 3 of them are in District 1, which is of note. 2 of them impact existing Pacific plans. The one that obviously you as an organization have commented on, as well as a number of the APAC members have commented on, has to do with the M5 Serrano amendments. I again, to thank your membership and thank APAC particularly for bringing forward your concerns. I think just since I've been only in this role as certainly as chair of the commission, a very, very short period of time, I want to share with you just a suggestion in terms of future comments from APAC specifically. Don't expect the commissioners, who are, quite frankly, all volunteers like you are, to be able to have the answers to questions when you ask them. It's my hope that certainly that staff would respond to your questions in advance. And I've asked specifically to staff to really address the specific questions you posed in your public comment. But when you do present in a way that is directed toward your points. And if you need to ask questions, do that, but do that not necessarily as a, well, perhaps separately. Well, one address questions directly to staff, and you can always include those questions and send it to commissioners so we'll know what you're asking, so we can follow up. But be very direct. Also, understand that under current rules, I have to be subject to a 3-minute rule in terms of public comment. I know that some of these things really require 10 minutes, 15 minutes to review, but until we are able to readjust our bylaws, and that's, by the way, a topic for not this meeting, but our next meeting. Perhaps we can have a more direct and more transparent method to actually review these things. But for tomorrow, we're going to be having to really be very conscious of that 3-minute time. So please bring your comments, have them succinct, and highlight the most important issues, because 3 minutes goes by very, very quickly. The second thing I want to quickly mention is that District 1 Commissioner and myself as District 2 Commissioner are part of an ad hoc committee that will be reviewing how well Pacific plans have actually been working, so we have lessons learned as we review all the Pacific plans coming forward. And I want to encourage all members of the APAC family to contribute information. We would like to have you actually participate in really an active review of these items for a workshop, which we will have before us prior to even consideration of the town and country proposal, which is in essence really a Pacific plan, although it's not called such. So by all means, reach out to me, reach out to Dave Spar. If you'd like to participate, we really welcome your input on that front. With that, I'll let you get to other business. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Bob. And I should identify Dave Spar, District 1 Planning Commissioner, here in the audience with us tonight. And while we're talking about the Planning Commission, I'll do two things. So obviously, Bob was an APAC officer before he was appointed to the Planning Commission. But over the last several years, we've had very good interaction with our planning commissioners that are very local to El Dorado Hills. Specifically, John Vania was District 1 Planning Commissioner for many years. And also, David's been very engaged with us when we have projects or topics to talk about. Bob obviously is always engaged with us. But I would like to identify also that we're losing a planning commissioner. District 4 Planning Commissioner Andy Nevis will be stepping down. They posted the vacancy. And I talked to Andy the other day. Andy's a young guy and does a lot of work. And he has a job in addition to being a planning commissioner. So I would like to take the opportunity to thank Bob, thank Dave, and to thank Andy and the other two commissioners as well. They hear a lot of negative because people are concerned, but they've always remained engaged with us, and it's not an easy thing to do. So thank you, David. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Andy Nevis. So, and if you're a District 4 resident and want to apply for a planning commissioner spot, jump on in. So with that, next item tonight, I'm going to stop this. So Matt Smeltzer's here from the County Department of Transportation. Dustin's with you too. I'm going to load your PowerPoint. You got a microphone up there. But what we're talking about is the El Dorado Hills Latrobe Road US 50 Interchange Improvement Project, which we've talked about before, but this is more of a status update. Let me escape out of this and load your presentation, which is right here. Let me minimize this. Sorry, I'm going to get on the screen. And thank you for your patience. And thanks for coming in this bad weather. We appreciate it.
It's working?
It's not from the room, it's only for the Zoom. So
okay.
as long as it's green, they'll hear you online and on the recording.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, everybody. Like you said, I'm Matt Smeltzer, Deputy Director, Engineering at El Dorado County Department of Transportation. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for having us to give you this update. You guys do a great job. Planning committees, advisory committees are a really great thing and really important to us. This link to the community, to get this communication, they really help grease the wheels on that and all your participation. I'm here to give you a positive message tonight. We're making some good progress on this project. I'm here with our project manager, Dustin Harrington, and our consultant, the project manager, Brent Lemon with Consor Engineering, who's in the back of the room here. Both great engineers doing a great job. They've done tons of projects in their careers. Dustin's managing right now about 75 million in projects in DOT. I have another senior engineer, John Balzer. He's managing approximately 100 million in projects. One of them's out in construction right now, but they're working on projects in all different phases. And they handle a lot and they do a great job. And they love what they do for this county, and so do I. I've been here for 25 years, and I've been working on most of the phases of this interchange since I've been here. I've been with the county actually 26 years. And I worked on the very first phase. When Blue Shield was going in, I was working on bridges because I was a bridge engineer, and they said, Matt, we need you on this interchange. Blue Shield's coming. Town Center is getting built right across from there. And I was watching it all go up as we're putting in that first ramp. And I think we've gone through about 5 phases on this. One of them was even a throwaway phase. I remember I hated that one, where we squeezed the lane underneath the freeway before we replaced the bridges by putting in a retaining wall to get another lane in. But the last phase we did was about 7 years ago. And we were very fortunate to get 15 million from the state of California to help pay for that phase. And again, we are getting approximately 15 million from the state of California for this phase of the project. So we're all very fortunate to have that opportunity. And when that door opened, just like the last time, Brent Lemon was the project manager 7 years ago. That time it was, you can get this 15 million if you can deliver this project in, what was it, 3 months, Brent? It was a record, it was a miracle. Getting through Caltrans in 3 months, those guys were working around the clock. And we were hustling every step of that. Because the Caltrans project schedule to get through those processes, you know, we had like process flow chart like this long. Caltrans is like this long. It's like thousands of steps, thousands of reviews, tons of people come to these meetings every time telling us how we should design this. And we fight hard for this county. I tell you what, we fight to keep the project in budget and on time. And these guys are doing a great job at it. And we listened to the community, and they gave us a list of pedestrian concerns they had, and we're addressing those, and Dustin's going to present that tonight. And we're trying to keep this project on schedule. It's not easy, and I'll tell you, and it's not easy to get through Caltrans. Like I said, they are very protective of their codes, their ways of doing things, and to get this class 1 trail, and we're doing multi-use trail that he's going to show you tonight, they didn't like part of the design as it led up to the ramp because of a rockery wall down below in town center. And we didn't want to tear up the town center parking lot and landscaping, so we came up with a very creative structural solution he's going to show you for that. And Caltrans says it's not in our standards. We've never done that before. And so we said, okay, well, we'll cut this part out of your right of way then. And we'll own it, and we're going to maintain it, which you're going to make us maintain it anyways, because our sidewalk. We maintain everything that's the county road. John was asking me, hey, who sweeps the shoulders on the ramps? He's asked me a lot over the years, actually. And we do that on our county roads. We're responsible for when it goes through the interchange. The county's responsible for that. Caltrans is the freeway surface and the structure. They don't want the freeway to collapse, so they take total responsibility of the structure after we build them. And we built every structure on this interchange over the years with a lot of teamwork. And yeah, and been working with these guys a long time, John especially. I remember Latrobe signal at White Rock going in and going back there, and our staff was timing it to get a pedestrian across. And 10 years ago, he walked it and told us even more improvements he wanted to see. And he reminds me of how he's losing his patience, and I got to do this and get it done faster, and we're trying to. So without further ado, I'll let Dustin present the project. He's got a slideshow his team has put together for you, and thank you.
Thank you, man.
John, they're naming the bike lane after you.
Whoa, slow down. That comes later, much later. So you just let me know when you want me to move, Dustin.
All right, sounds good. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving us some time tonight. Dustin Harrington, I'm with El Dorado County Department of Transportation. Kind of just piggybacking off of what Matt said. You know, this county has a large unincorporated area. And so, you know, we have projects all over the place, some up in Tahoe Basin, some down here, West Slope, all over. So we're always excited when we can put some money and some work down here in District 1. We like this area. This is where all the traffic is. And so, you know, we, as Supervisor Ferrero said, money is tight right now. You're seeing that everywhere. And so it's significant when a smaller county like us is able to secure funds that would normally go to LA or the Bay Area. You know, we look at every opportunity, especially in the Department of Transportation. We're largely grant funded. We look at every opportunity we have when there are grants out there that are available. We put in the effort, the applications. We try to leverage our own funds so we can look competitive against, you know, other agencies that are much bigger and have much more that they can offer. And sometimes we cross our fingers and we're able to get some of these grants. So whether it's a bike path, a bridge replacement, an interchange, you know, we'll look at whatever we can in terms of capital improvements. So that's just kind of a little bit background as to, you know, what we operate. We use very little general funds, so we're largely grant, and we're always looking for those federal and state opportunities. So as Matt said, we're able to secure approximately 15 million of STIP, State Transportation Improvement Program funds to go to this project. It's technically a co-op between Caltrans and the county because it's their highway facility and their ramps, and you know, we've got our county roads that intersect that. So that's what really kind of drags the project out, if you will, because every decision we make through design has to be blessed by Caltrans. Occasionally we'll have some differing opinions on certain things, like Matt mentioned about the Class 1 bike path. And so we have to go into more focused discussions with them until we can get a consensus and move forward. And sometimes that involves some creative planning on our part. So try to keep this brief, but I did want to kind of give that background to the project. We were here a little over a year ago to first introduce this project as things were kind of coming together. That was kind of the first formal public introduction of it. So we're happy to come back. We did meet with a couple of commissioners shortly after that meeting to kind of relay some of the concerns that they had compiled from talking with some of the constituents too. And so we really tried to integrate those comments into where we are now and scoping the project, bringing different concerns and ideas to Caltrans as the design was starting to come together. So we hope that, you know, we couldn't make everyone happy. You know, there's no solution for everything, but given our budget, giving, you know, design standards and what the state would typically accept for maintenance and to be part of their highway system, we tried to, you know, strike that balance and address as many comments as we could. So next slide. So just quick agenda. We'll talk about, I believe the first slide is actually project history, purpose and need, improvements, next steps, schedule, and then we'll have some time for questions. So it's a quick presentation. So just a little background. As Matt mentioned, this project goes back, way back. I think they started the document in the late 90s. It was first adopted around 2000, and then it was re-adopted in 2003. There's some things that went on between those years, but we finally got it re-adopted in 2003, completed the first phase in 2006, and then 2A in 2012. We called it 2B.1 in 2015, and I can't remember what all of these phases were. You know, it depended on what direction it was, eastbound, westbound, as the main bridges were reconstructed with the ramps and so forth. So it's been 3 projects so far. This will be the 4th and final phase. We're calling it 2B, but it's technically 2B2, and we anticipate completion in 2028. So, this is the remaining component. It's the southeast quadrant of the interchange. And this is, reconstruction at US 50, Latrobe Road and El Dorado Hills, just right down the road here. Goals are to enhance the operational efficiency, safety, capacity of the interchange. We have some existing deficiencies that we'll be correcting. And obviously, we always want to improve traffic flow and safety when we're doing improvements. And then we also have a multimodal component in here, as that's something that really was part of the comments that we received at the last meeting. Next slide.
Does it go?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's a delay. It might be me.
The slides, these two look the same. So the improvements we have, really we were looking at, it's the only piece that was never really touched is the eastbound diagonal on-ramp. So if you're coming up Latrobe Road, you turn on eastbound 50, you go right behind the Nugget Market there. That's all kind of original and never really was improved. So that's what we knew we had to address firsthand. And so that's the first bullet there. We have the eastbound loop off-ramp that was reconstructed. There are going to be some minor improvements to the curvature part once the bridge stops there. So that will be included in this. I mentioned the eastbound diagonal, so that's going to be widened from 1 lane to 2 lane. They're going to add ramp metering. That's kind of a Caltrans standard now for ramp improvements. We'll be adding an additional lane to northbound El Dorado Hills Boulevard, improving bike pedestrian facilities and additional drainage, retaining walls. These are just minor items that will just be inherent with the project improvements. So these are the 2 ramps here. There's the eastbound loop off ramp there you see. We'll be realigning and widening that. So we're just going to kind of push that out a little further to get to soften that curve. You can see kind of where the existing ramp is in the faded back line there. And then the diagonal ramp, which is the eastbound one there, you can see the additional lane that we'll be adding. And there'll be the ramp metering. So that whole intersection right there at the ramps and Latrobe, and then kind of where El Dorado Hills Boulevard begins, will be improved, getting rid of that dead space in the middle, the remnants of the old off-ramp. So this exhibit shows a little bit of a better, what's added as part of the project. So the bluish line is where we are adding vehicular lanes. So you can see if north is going to the right, we have a 4th lane that's a through lane on Latrobe Road that we'll be adding, because right now there's that drop that goes into Town Center Boulevard. So we're going to extend that lane all the way down to Town Center Boulevard, so that can continue on. And then we'll widen to maintain the right turn onto the ramp there. That's obviously an existing signalized intersection there. Then we'll improve that median area that's shown in the kind of a salmon color. We'll continue that added vehicle lane there on northbound. So that will be the 4th lane. Then we'll be adding the lane with the eastbound off-ramp that comes in, and then that new lane will kind of then move over. The new lane, there's a lane that starts right now presently just past the bridge, and so that's why there's a gap right there, because we actually have that lane, and then the extra turn pocket is shown there at the far right. So it will be a slight widening where you see the green. That's to construct the multi-use path. So much of that right now is just a standard, I don't know about the 6 or 8 foot sidewalk, but that's what we have there. So that's going to be widened to a multi-use path, which effectively is about a 12 foot total width. So 8 feet with about 2 feet on each side for a shy distance. And that's intended to accommodate both bikes and pedestrians. And so we'll have the signalized crossing right there at the intersection, and then where it crosses the eastbound off-ramp loop there, there'll be it's going to be a rectangular, rapid flashing beacon. So we were able to kind of downgrade that from the need to have an actual signal, which we had some concerns about, and Caltrans did, as far as the movement off the ramp, to just having a flashing beacon, which has been used at similar applications other places. So our class 1 improvements that Matt was touching on, this is much of the area that's shown in green shading, where right now we have a sidewalk we're going to be widening, and there's an existing rockery wall that borders much of Marketplace at Town Center. And we wanted to minimize disruption, A, to the wall, and B, to their parking lot operations, because that's a very busy center. So this is a way we were able to kind of thread the needle and install a 12-foot wide facility immediately behind the wall. It will veer eventually, away from the wall as the project goes further south, but at its closest point, it's kind of right up against it. So we came up with kind of a creative solution to install, which would probably be somewhat of a precast walkway supported on piles, so it doesn't load the back of the wall. And that way it's a self-supporting structure, if you will, that's mostly buried. You won't see it. It's like a sidewalk from appearance, but we'll be able to keep the wall in place, and that will really help us out on multiple levels, especially when we have to work with Town Center, acquire property, acquire right-of-way in order to get this all in. It will really help smooth those discussions over. And so as far as aesthetics, we wanted to kind of, make things look as nice as we can to match the aesthetics of Town Center. So we're looking at it installing decorative fencing, like a wrought iron type that you find all over Town Center or something like that on the backside of the walkway. And then because of the speeds and the proximity of the walkway, we'll have a concrete barrier separating the traffic shoulder with the pedestrian and bicyclists. And so we'd like to use a concrete barrier that's type 85. It's got opening apertures in there, and we've started using this on some of our bridges where it receives like a textured treatment and colored to the concrete. This one will also probably have a small rail on top of it because of the bicyclists. So it's not shown in the photo, but something similar to that. We also have some of that up in the city of Placerville. So just to kind of enhance the aesthetics of this project, those were a couple of items that we were able to integrate. So we're continuing with our design, several different elements, drainage, geotechnical. We've got several different retaining walls that will be part of the project. One of them is right up against where the diagonal ramp is there, crossing Carson Creek. There's an old box culvert that goes under Highway 50 that we have to work around. We don't want to interfere with that, certainly. And so that's also been kind of a creative design. We've got those items, obviously traffic, construction staging, all the things that we have to have figured out in order to get this thing out to bid. And then the environmental piece, it's piggybacking off the original EIR, which is 20 years old. So we are doing a fourth addendum to this EIR. It's something that will have to go to our board of supervisors for adoption. We would probably anticipate that within a couple months. It has been drafted, and so that will be a piece that the county then will amend its original EIR with. And that helps us move forward then with, you know, right-of-way acquisition, just getting some slivers here and there. So we have all the land rights, working with Caltrans, on all the final design, ideas and specifications and all their requirements, which continue to grow, every year. So, it keeps us busy. And just a graphic here of the schedule. So starting on the left end, we should have about 65% design this summer. All the environmental studies complete by the fall. Everything's really completed now, but it's a matter of just getting the EIR addendum adopted. And then we have a final piece that has to be certified once our regional planning document is amended in November. So that's why that's kind of pushing that out to the fall. The design 95% around winter time, hoping to have our right-of-way acquisition finished by next summer, if not sooner, depending on how those go. And then all of our regulatory permits by next fall. So then we could have the design complete at the end of next year, advertise an award, you know, early 2027. And then begin construction shortly after and complete the project in 2028. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded. Happy to answer any questions here. And there's my contact information. If something comes up later on, feel free to contact me about anything regarding the project.
Mr. Ressler is
I
first.
have a question up here. Has Caltrans approved your project?
Yes, essentially they have approved the geometric design layout, the concepts that we have, the alterations to the existing facilities. One of the really the biggest sticking points they had was that multi-use path, just because Caltrans is very, you know, by the book, so they like things that are commonly constructed out of their standards or you know, replicated that way. So this is a little bit of a custom design, and so there was some concern there. That's when the county said, "Hey, we'll go ahead and take care of this," and that seemingly took care and resolved their concerns. So other than that, the design process and coordination with them has actually gone very smoothly. Thankfully.
Can we go back to the design, go one more? All right. Where you have pedestrians and bikes crossing that ramp coming off and that ramp coming on is an extremely dangerous place. And I've seen it where people will make a right-hand turn off of Latrobe and they don't care who's there. So what are you doing really and truly to protect people from that are crossing there when you have people making a right-hand turn in both ways? You know, getting off of Latrobe and getting onto 50 and then getting off of 50, getting onto Latrobe. That's the most dangerous place in this whole design. I don't know, you're going to put a flashing red beacon on one point, but you're still not doing anything for people making a right-hand turn coming on. And I've been caught in the middle of that, you know. So I think you need something, maybe another flashing beacon for people making a right-hand turn off of Latrobe if somebody is there. And that area in there right now is a shame. You know, it's got broken pieces of fence. It's got, you know, it looks like a slum parking lot. That's what it looks like.
It definitely needs some TLC. So
Oh,
yeah,
more than that, it needs an overhaul.
Yeah, so thankfully, as part of this project, the whole area is going to be completely reconstructed. Like I said, the median will provide a nice separated safe refuge for pedestrians between those two conflict points. As far as the first conflict point where the crosswalk will be, that will have a standard
pedestrian signal with a pedestrian crossing, and, you know, all the required delineation for the crossing.
And we are gonna be sure that the visibility is there. The barrier that they showed going across, that's gonna stop shy of there so that they can clearly see if somebody's at that landing to cross. So we're stopping the barrier, 'cause we know the cars are gonna stop, so they don't need the barrier there once you get close to the signal. So we listened to you and we tried to make it as open and visible as possible.
So they
And
run you over,
hopefully
they'll
people
see you when they run you over. No, what I'm saying is if you were to come from here, okay, I'm crossing here. Many times this traffic will not stop, okay, and now I'm here. So that's why I'm saying you may want to include some kind of a flashing thing when I press the button here. It's warning people that I'm crossing this way. Okay, of course you have the problem this way, but you're gonna have a beacon here on this side warning them. Hopefully, those people will stop or slow down or take consideration of that. All right, thank you. And it's a great improvement. I would like to live to see it.
So we had talked about potential improvements on the west side, on the top here, restriping and cleaning up the bike lane there. Is that part of this project or separate?
This project does not include, unfortunately, does not include any improvements on the west side. Our project footprint is very closely kept to the east side, northbound direction. And a lot of that is just, we have to be careful with the Caltrans facilities. We don't want to overstep our bounds to say, because then it can lead to scope creep. And then they start saying, well, what about this? What about that? And you can imagine how it is sometimes with, you know, all these different review units. So when we can first define the project purpose and need and define that project area and those limits, it helps keep us in line so we're able to stick to the budget and address the main deficiencies. I'm not saying there aren't any issues that need to be addressed on the, you know, on the west side, southbound, but it's just outside the scope of this project.
Just as long as it's green.
Okay, yeah, I'll add to that. You did bring up the edge striping on the other side, and it is the old style. We did talk about, and it's not a Caltrans requirement to include it in the plans. And we didn't want to start expanding the scope with Caltrans overseeing us on the other side and open a can of worms. We want to get through them as quickly as possible, like we said. But we can do the striping enhancement on the other side. It's just, we're not showing as a significant improvement here. But when we go out to bid, we can have them, we'll put a 6-inch wider stripe on this side. It's a common thing for the edge line to do the high visibility and a little wider for the white edge. And we'll be doing that on the other side too.
Thank you.
I have several questions, actually. First, I want to compliment you and Consor for providing maps that are and schedules that are very easy to read and understand, I think, for the layperson. First question, last night or yesterday at the Board of Supervisors on the consent calendar, there was a whole section on this particular matter. One of the changes was the scope of work language in the contract. Did the changes that the board approved yesterday, are they implemented in this language here?
Yes, that was essentially at some point over the last year, we decided to add that extra, I really extend that northbound through lane all the way down to Town Center Boulevard. That was not part of the original scope, or it wasn't planned when we came to APAC, you know, late 2023. So we were looking at traffic forecasting in the area and predicted volumes, and realized that, hey, this would be a very significant item that we could include in this project here. And there was enough time to be able to do that. We weren't too far through design and environmental. So we're able to integrate that in so we don't have to come back later on and
mess with that, in 10 or 20 years. So that was really what that board item was to address, just some of the things that had changed in terms of the design budget.
Okay. Next question was, you had a right-of-way acquisition, excuse me. When I look at this map, it seems to me that it's mostly either state or county. So what right-of-way are you acquiring?
Right, so, it's very minimal. It's really just, some sliver pieces. So along Latrobe Road, the Marketplace and Town Center, there'll be some very, thin, sliver acquisitions, really to accommodate that green line, the multi-use path, because right now the right-of-way is somewhere between the back of sidewalk and, maybe it's a few feet from the back of sidewalk. So maybe we have to extend it down, 8 or 10 feet this way to accommodate everything we're constructing. And then there is a larger parcel that's all fenced in right now. It's owned by Caltrans. It's right there behind Nugget. It looks kind of just like a grassy wetland area. So that was kind of set aside when we did earlier phases because both agencies recognized that we would need this when this phase came about. And so that's going to be acquired from Caltrans on this one too. So, or excuse me, from Marketplace at Town Center. It will be eventually, county acquires it and then it will eventually be relinquished to Caltrans to maintain.
And I guess my final question is, back when Serrano was proposing developing the old golf course prior to its accusation by the CSD, Parker had proposed building a pedestrian bicycle overpass over 50 that was going to come into the back of town center, around where the Mercedes parking lot was in the back there. I assume that's just gone, never going to happen.
Anything's possible. It still could be revived at some point. The big question is the money, obviously, and that will be a challenge working with Caltrans to construct a overcrossing over their facility. But it certainly can happen. You just need to, have some money come in somewhere, and if there's momentum behind that, it certainly could happen, and we'd love to see it someday.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really expensive, right?
Yes,
That's what we reviewed Central. That was our
$15 million.
Yeah. So do you have a microphone? Mary had her hand up first, and then we'll come forward. You're next.
Speaking of money, it's really nice that the state decided to give you a grant. But approximately how much is the total project in today's dollars? Because you're not scheduled to construct until later on. I'm just curious.
Correct. So the cost estimate that we have, that we had put together when we were looking at our state funding and the 15 million, we did apply a future inflation cost on there. So we're looking at what would be projected in 2027 dollars when the project's constructed. So we start with current dollars and then we put it.
And how much is that?
I think the total project costs, Matt might know, I think it's around 20 million. So roughly 15 million for construction, probably about $500,000 for right of way, and then maybe 4 million for environmental design, planning, all that stuff.
As long as the scope of services doesn't change.
Right. And we're far enough right now into design to where that scope is pretty much been locked in.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Hi. This is a really great plan from my perspective. I mean, we live in this area and go through here all the time, and much needed improvements. Question about on this map, thanks for the map, if we're coming down heading east on 80 and we take that exit onto Latrobe Road there, that divider between north and southbound Latrobe Road, there's a strange concrete, everybody knows about this, right? There's this concrete barrier that grows up out of the ground, and then there's a metal box that was bolted to the top of that. It looks like a mistake covered with a Band-Aid to me. Is there any hope we could, improve the divider between the north and southbound lanes so it just isn't quite so ugly?
I'm thinking you're talking about, there's it's a crash cushion on both sides, right? It kind of,
Yeah.
angled up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's, it has to do with, it's protecting a fixed object. I believe there's a sign pole or post right there. And so it has to do with the proximity to traffic. If a vehicle were to become errant, that crash cushion then would be able to absorb that impact so it doesn't wrap itself around that post. So unfortunately, we would have to go through and reconstruct that entire median, bring it up to current standards, and I'm not sure what that would look like, to be honest, if it would look better or worse. But we because of scope creep and those things, we opted not to touch that median because it just opens up a new can of worms. So
I understand that, but it's
I don't
it's an
disagree with you
eyesore.
on that,
Yeah, I think we could do better.
Are there, Linda, you have, oh, well, you know where you're going.
I'm going Linda Campbell, El Dorado Hills. So just correct me if I'm wrong. That diagram looks like on the curve, it's one lane. You're only doing one lane, not two, right? Because last time you guys were talking about doing 2 lanes.
correct. So yeah, that was much earlier. We didn't have all of our traffic numbers yet. And so, once the, analysis was complete, we realized that the numbers did not, dictate 2 lanes. And so, yes, it's going to be a single lane, loop off ramp.
Okay.
Which is better for pedestrian crossing.
That's also excellent because that added lane right there, I had a lot of concerns. That second lane on the curve, if it immediately merged, then it would be a constant issue.
Yes.
Right? So, okay, very good. And then you brought up there's gonna be a change to the EIR. And then you said it was gonna go in front of the Board of Supervisors in a couple months. Does that actually go through the Planning Commission first?
No, so the EIR is the county's own document. So it's something that's prepared by the Department of Transportation or whatever department is proposing the project. And then the board will basically we'll have a review period typically for standard EIR. This particular document is an addendum. So it's the lowest level of change that you can make to the EIR. And so it really just highlights the changes between the original project description and what this project is, and then reviews all of the different elements of the EIR as to whether any of these changes would suddenly trigger something that would be a significant or potentially significant impact. And fortunately, these changes are fairly minor, so it's still in line with the original project in terms of it doesn't trigger any of those impacts that weren't realized before. But we still have to, make sure that we're correcting and updating the project description to what we're doing now. So it's an addendum. It will be at the board. There'll be public comment opportunities for the public as the board hears it and then chooses to.
We are currently targeting May 13th for the board addendum.
Okay. The only reason I ask is if it only goes to the board, then we basically only see it when the agenda is published and the items are available, which is about 3 or 4 days before the board meeting. So it doesn't give the public much time for review. So I don't know if there's something that we could have a chance to take a look in advance or that it's made available before that, because then it gives us more time to provide input to our supervisors.
So according to the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, addendas don't require like a 30-day public circulation period, but we're happy to be transparent and we don't want anyone to be blindsided with that. So that's something we certainly can consider putting, and we'll typically put like a press release or a note on our website about, hey, there's a addenda that's being considered, and it's up for comments for 30 days. So that's something we certainly could consider, so you have more than those few days before the board meeting to review it, because.
Consider that, that'd be helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Linda, why don't we add that to our quarterly meeting agenda as a
It
topic?
might be, when,
It might be too late.
yeah.
Well, well, but we should do it in April anyway. We should do that meeting. So we can talk about it offline.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to count, because we were supposed to do it in February, we skipped to March, counting months.
Yeah, like Dustin said, we're trying to be as transparent as we can. I'm trying to be as transparent as I can. You can almost see through me. I'm so transparent. And we're given plenty of time. We have a project website and we do have an email address there where you can send comments in, and anyone's welcome to do that at any time. And yeah, I'm letting everybody know we're planning to go to the board. May 13th is a target date now.
I think most of us sign up for the email list. So yeah, if there's a press release, we'll share it on our website and put links.
We're
to
going
it.
way above and beyond what addendums are usually
Yeah.
required to do.
But anything
But
you
we
have
like
that you
to
want to share, we'll push
get
it
that
out.
collaboration.
We'll get it. Okay. I can probably go find it right now. Are there any other questions in the room? And then I'm gonna go ahead and stop this share real quick so I can see. Yeah, okay, there it is, sorry. So hard to talk and do. So are there any questions online? You could raise your hand. It looks like you guys are off the hook now. No, well,
We do want to thank you for what you have done this far. It took a while, and we would love to see it completed. But what we see here is a great, great improvement over what we had, and we thank you for working on that. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to compliment these guys again on the great job they're doing. There's some of the unique structural design they did that's saving millions of dollars for this project. The box culvert crossing that's 3/4 of the way up the eastbound on-ramp. There are utilities underneath it, in front of it, all around that box culvert. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a manhole with the total El Dorado Hills sewer line right there. And we are able to avoid it with the unique structural design they're doing to get a wall in and just widen that box culvert enough to get in the safety improvements we want to get in, and the pull-outs, Caltrans to meet their codes for CHP, pull-outs and maintenance pull-outs there. They really came up with some good solutions. So, and thank you very much again for letting us present.
And thank you for coming down, stormy night. And I know that we were trying to get to it earlier. We had some other presentations that kind of delayed your presentation time, but thank you again. We always appreciate the engagement. And I think that even with our standing committee, when we have our quarterly meeting, it keeps us, it keeps the dialogue going. So it's been very valuable. So thank you. Thank you again for being here tonight. And now I got to drive back to where I left off. Okay, I'm going to throw this up on the screen. Half hour more, maybe. Maybe, if I don't ask questions. Well, good luck. So, okay. Yes, thank you. So, APAC matters and projects. The first thing we're going to do, we're not diving into this. We had the scoping meeting here on Monday night, and a lot of people here were at the scoping meeting, and a lot of people have come up and made suggestions and comments. But what we want to do is for people who didn't get to the scoping meeting, because this one was different. The first scoping meeting we had on this was during COVID, and it was entirely virtual. Well, we thought maybe, it could have been a hybrid one like we've been doing for other ones. This scoping meeting for Costco was only in person, so there's no recording. So we just want to let people know sort of the things that came up at the meeting. We have a comment period to look at. And again, these documents, there's links on our website, and we have copies of most of the documents on our website. But we're talking about the Costco development. It's been renamed from EDH 52 Costco to just EDH Costco. What has changed is that the applicant, Costco, has purchased the property fully from the previous landowner. They've eliminated the project the other landowner had intended on they call it the north side, still call it the east. and switch to just having a fuel station. And iterations of this project since 2019, when I think we had the stakeholders meetings, and I think I was in Hawaii and got a call, hey, we have a stakeholder meeting coming. Okay. So I did not hurry back. But we've talked about this for a long time, and so this project has changed. You know, at one time, Costco, the warehouse was going to be on the north side. They were going to have a fuel station on the south side. Then they went to have no fuel station to accommodate the other project. Fuel stations back there on both sides. So moving ahead. So this is the project site. Silver Valley Parkway, Clarksville Crossing, the old Silver Valley Parkway, on the west side. Silver Valley going between the parcels. The fuel station is proposed for the north side, and they're not proposing at this time anything else happening there. The thing about this is that, and this is just another graphic while I yammer. So it shows the road alignments. Tong Road, existing right now, does come out onto Silver Valley, and they still show it stubbed out here, but they also show it tying into the back of the project. But there is no Country Club Drive extension in this project at this point. And this bottom graphic shows a little bit of the multi-level parking structure. So I'm going to jump ahead. Here's a little bit closer look at that. So Tong right now, it's sort of parallel to the off-ramp, and you know, it's almost an abandoned road at the top. You can get across to Bass Lake Road from there, but it's a chore. So Country Club has been proposed. It's in the CIP to come from Bass Lake Road all the way down to Silver Valley. There's no official alignment or right of way yet, but it's, I think when we add them up, it's like over $60 million in 3 or 4 projects in phases. So there's no project supplying the property right now, the right of way. And if you have an extra 60 or $80 million in your pocket, we could talk. But
John, while you have this up too, I want to point out, I know because several people at the Costco meeting suggested perhaps if there was going to be a gas station, and that's a question, but if the gas station be moved closer to the freeway. We've had several discussions with DOT on that in the past. DOT has said absolutely no, because they're afraid that the gas station closer to the freeway off-ramp would create traffic backup. And they have pretty much the same thing with the entrances into the Costco warehouse side. They wanted it further down where it's shown now. They did not want it closer to the freeway because of backup issues. So basically, because of DOT concerns, that is why the gas station is presented as being where it is now.
one of the items, yeah, I know the DOT talked for a long time on our conversations when they were talking, when it was multiple projects before. It's like, you can't have all these signals that close to the interchange because it impacts the interchange and it'll back up on the highway. You know, we just went through a $20 million project for Bass Lake Road to move the old Country Club 1,700 feet to the north. So, so that was one of the concerns. But as we look at this, and then this is what's proposed for the below grade parking, they're going to have essentially a platform over lower grade parking with some ramps for carts in and out of the warehouse store, and then parking above it as well. And that would be on the west side of the project towards Clarksville Crossing. Obviously, they have to deal with the grade there. So as I move forward, I wanted to show, and I'll flip this because this is a bad look. It's not north-south on this, but this is the existing zoning. I'm going to flip to this one. Now it makes sense. The west side, the east side, since I want to say 2008, 2010, has been zoned regional commercial, which is essentially big box. So there are not a lot of regional commercial zonings in our county. And the reason it's here is it was part of the El Dorado Hills specific plan back in 1988. They had a land use error, I think, in the general plan, where because at one point I think there's a standalone property close by, and they called it residential, but it wasn't. So they corrected that in 2008, 2010. Next to the freeway is where you want to put your commercial. That's essentially what they corrected the zoning. It's been that way for quite a while. And when we talk about this as a project, and here I wanted to show you what we were talking about the fuel station. There's a significant grade as you approach the highway in Tong Road. So this is looking south. And obviously the east side of the project is there on the other side of the screen. But if you look at that grade, and then you look, this is Tong Road right here. Yeah, so, but when you go into the assessor's map for parcels, I think I got a little closer. Basically that hill at the bottom and Tong is down here at the bottom of this. It's hard to see on this one, but that's 800 feet in elevation. And when you get to the other parts of the parcel, it's 740 feet in elevation. So you're talking about 40 to 60 feet of grading if you wanted to, because if you want the fuel station to be at the south, it means it's going to be up on top. And also, we know from when Silver Valley Interchange was constructed, there's a lot of rock in that ground. There's a lot of dynamite that had to happen to make that interchange happen. So it's a cost thing, obviously, at one end, but also too, if you attempt to put it on the south part of the parcel, then you're raising it up and you're impacting maybe the residents that are close by a little more. It would be further from the school. So it's something when we look at the project, we'll consider and we'll have a talk about it, but we have to know it's possible. And if they're willing to entertain, we'll make every suggestion in the world. They can only say yes or no. So, but we did want to point out the grade challenge with that when we talked about that during the scoping meeting the other night. So at the scoping meeting, it was here in this room on the 10th. It's a revised scoping meeting because we did have a scoping meeting. I mentioned it was via Zoom in, I think, 2021. So the comment period for the notice of preparation of the draft EAR and the scoping meeting, that review comment period, it closes on 5 p.m. March 31st. So if you want to send, and the county planner on this is Cameron Welch, and Cameron's really good to talk to. So keep that back in mind. If you want to have a discussion, email with Cameron. Comments on the scoping meeting. Well, I'm sorry, there's the email address on there, and we'll have this on the website as well. It's edhcosco@edc.gov.us. You can send your comments in there. You can send comments in as often as you like, but because this is the scoping meeting about the draft environmental impact report, they want to focus on environmental matters. You can send in a comment that says, I don't like your project, or I think you should make it, flip it around, or whatever. And that's fine. They'll say thank you for the comment, but they're looking for environmental feedback to inform the draft EAR, to inform how the analysis of the environmental proceeds. Because there's no rezone requested, we talked about the commercial regional zoning. There's no rezone. It does not go to the Board of Supervisors. It'll be decided by the Planning Commission. You're a lucky man, Dave. So it goes to the Planning Commission, and they will make a determination of approval, denial, whatever. The only way it goes to the Board of Supervisors is somebody challenges the Planning Commission decision. If they vote to deny the project and you want it to go forward, you'd have to appeal it to the Board of Supervisors. And I think it's $400. You have to appeal it. If they vote to approve it and you want to appeal that, you still have to go to the Board of Supervisors, and then they would make the determination. But supervisors won't be weighing in on this unless there's an appeal.
And if an appeal's done, I believe it's 10 days, John?
Yeah.
It's 10 days, so it's not, don't sit around twiddling your thumbs. If you're gonna appeal, you better get your $400 fee ready, and you better start the appeal process. And the Board of Supervisors publishes the steps that you have to do to make an appeal, to get it on their agenda. So make sure you follow those steps if you feel it's necessary to appeal.
The other thing that was discussed as we began the scoping meeting was that in the past, we talked about the Country Club Drive extension. The intent is to go from Bass Lake Road all the way down to Dorado Boulevard. It was 3 or 4 different projects in the CIP. But because there's no big development other than the fuel station, there's no EDH 52 with, at one point they proposed many commercial buildings or retail buildings. And then their last iteration, they proposed 300 apartment units and a couple retail buildings. They were talking about facilitating part of the Country Club Drive extension, whether it was just a stub out behind their project to maybe the Serrano Gate at A14. They're supposed to have a gate there. There's no road, so there's no gate. But because they're not doing that, Country Club Drive extension is not part of this project. I imagine we'll have something to say about that as we move forward. They don't have to do it, but we can ask. The draft environmental impact report, when it is published, they presented in the scoping meeting, they suggested a 45-day comment period. they can say 30. Legally, 60 is the max. We will ask for 60. And most of the time they accommodate that request. This is a significant project with a lot of impact. So I believe that's something that they will entertain. And I think your comment, Tim made a comment, said, we're going to ask for 60. You might as well start thinking about it now. So, oh, wait a minute, I lost my S on my scoping. Sorry. Coping, we were all coping. It was a crowded meeting. So the scoping meeting comments, just to sort of make a synopsis of it and questions, primarily weighed on the environmental impacts, which is the intent of this meeting. The fuel station was a big topic. Fuel station, we talked about the air quality impacts overall, but the fuel station impacts to Oak Meadow School and the students specifically. The fuel station location, which we sort of talked about, a lot of questions about, can we move it further south? Do you have something, Bill?
I just have a question. When you're done, John, all this.
You know, I'll just keep going, right? But yeah, okay.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, John. My question has to do with Clarksville Crossing and Silver Valley Parkway. There is an area, as we know, that is between those two streets. And what I have noticed there in the years that I have traversed, particularly, Clarksville Crossing, is there appear to be some, what shall I say, concrete structures that are in the dirt there. Is there any historical or hysterical significance to those?
I don't know. I know we will address it in the draft EIR, and I don't know if Melinda has any insight right now about those, or you haven't looked at. Just to put you on the spot.
My firm is a cultural resource management firm, and we did the entire acreage. First, it was the specific plan area, then they kept cutting pieces off, and it became other projects, but that was in this, the original work we did many, many eons ago. And I was able to interview Mimi Tong, who knew what was going on, and that was the Fitch house, where his family had owned land further up, further north, sort of, and he was this old bachelor, and he had a hobby of making things there and growing exotic plants. So if you were here earlier, like we moved here 30 years ago, those were in great shape, and there were exotic trees and all kinds of stuff. And we decided it was, well, what happened too is Fitch's house eventually burned down, and there were bats flying out of it. And I had this great description of what went on with all of that. But it was, again, it's one of those things you and everybody says, well, it's old. Why isn't it, important? And you run through the criteria for either the National Register, if there's federal involvement, or you run through the California Register for CEQA. And so we took and applied those. And again, it was part of what used to be there. It used to be a much bigger house, and, there were little remnants of it. But that was his little hobby he did, was to make, the different buildings and remnant buildings. And so other people have asked about this. That's why I'm ready to answer, because I keep getting asked about it, and it'll be better when they're mowed down and not there anymore, because I won't have to answer the question again. But it was interesting. I mean, it was something different, but it wasn't unique enough to meet the standards of, and that was done for that. I think there was federal permitting, so it was done to the National Register standards. So, National Register, California Register standards, and we did not consider it to be significant. There were so many other important sites, which I don't know where they are anymore, but on Serrano, on other parts of Serrano, that were, prehistoric sites, beautiful cabins, all kinds of stuff. I'm not sure any of it's still there, but, so those passed the line. But, the Mr. Albert Fitch's, stuff did not make it. And I have somewhere, probably I should get out my little sketch of it from the beginning, and I have old photos of how it looked way back when we did the work. But yeah, so it was unique in a way, but not, if it had been pristine, yeah, maybe. But most of it was, you know, burned in the fire.
Thank you very much. I've often wondered, and I appreciate your answer.
Okay.
So we're gonna jump in. We'll just go down this list. And a lot of these comments, we heard multiple times because it's the same concerns and they're very valid, right? When people want to know the answer to this, especially if you have kids at the school, you have property that you live in adjacent to this. So these are the questions that came up. We talked about the fuel station location, air quality, greenhouse gases from idling vehicles, not just for the fuel stations, you're waiting to get gasoline or diesel, and diesel came up as well. But the warehouse itself, you know, what are the greenhouse, you know, and this will be part of the draft DIR. Noise impacts from trucks, equipment, construction noise, water runoff, both when if the project is approved and completed, and also as it's being constructed, if it's approved. Wildlife impacts came up. So some residents say that, you know, they see a lot of bird activity there, and other animals. I think deer came up as well. Naturally occurring asbestos, that'll be evaluated, but NOA has been an issue in El Dorado Hills, in El Dorado County for a while. And you know, essentially you bury it is the remediation out for, but we'll find out right as they do their analysis. Circulation, there's talk about tractor trailers when they come in because there's limited access to the project sites as it's completed. About tractor trailers coming in and not being familiar and missing the turns. Well, where do you turn around? Well, you go down Slow Valley Parkway and now you're essentially in the surrounding neighborhood. So it's an important thing to consider and get an answer on, and hopefully find something that makes it better. Traffic signal impacts on the interchanges we just sort of talked about a little bit, but also for the school pickup and drop off. I've had residents send me video from the west side of, you know, that, and all of our schools are bad for pickup and drop off, but this goes essentially to the interchange. People lined up waiting to get into that school site, and there's no signal to get people out of the school site. So I've seen those videos, and that is something to be aware of. In fact, many parents suggested that you need to do some analysis and look at it at the drop off and pickup times at the school site, and that probably would inform this discussion better. We talked about circulation. So VMT and LOS. So in CEQA now, we don't look at level of service as a metric. We look at vehicle miles traveled, and it's a very complicated calculation. And I think every municipality or county has developed their implementation to be consistent with state law. But the other consideration for us is that in our general plan, we have several level of service metrics in our transportation element that were voter approved. So even though it's technically level of service, it's not part of CEQA. As a project, we have to look to satisfy the general plan. General plan is part of CEQA. So parking, the parking garage, a lot of questions about is there's enough parking for employees. We have parking and above ground parking and a below ground parking. And I think it was described, a lot of people have mentioned that it's a 2-story parking facility. And it is, but technically the first story is underground. So it's like a 1.5. So I think the parking facility is actually shorter than the warehouse in their drawings. We did talk about pedestrian circulation and safety concerns because there is a school right there, and Clarksville Crossing is supposed to be like a bike route and a pedestrian route after Silver Valley was put in. So we talked about that, you know, what are the protections and what are the concerns about safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. We talked about sidewalks and sound walls for the Serrano A14 village and the other villages over there. And we did talk about fire safety. So those were some of the questions and comments that came up, and they were very consistent. Many people made those comments several times. So the other thing that we end up usually having to talk about, because we've been talking to this applicant since 2019, the questions about why are they trying to do a Costco here in El Dorado Hills? So, you know, why is it so close to the Folsom Costco? Do you have something else there? Oh, do we have a microphone? Oh,
5 really beautiful oaks on the side of that,
Yes.
that parking space. No one mentioned anything about them?
I think, did we talk about trees?
It's very easy to carve it
Yeah.
out. It doesn't really much.
Okay. Well then, and hopefully you'll remind us when we
I'll be
review.
addressing it.
You have a microphone back there? Is there a microphone someplace close by? Yeah. As long as it's green, you can go.
I apologize. I had not been at the meeting on Monday, so I don't know whether this part had been covered. But I actually did go over the plans with one of my friends who's a retired environmental engineer at Alcoa and talked about several of these issues. And one of the things that we are concerned about, and I don't know was mentioned as part of the aerosol pollutants like benzene, is that 11 out of the 12 months, the prevalent wind is going from south to north. And so that will expose both our students as well as, all the staff members that work there every day. And since, it's a pretty temperate climate, so our kids even eat outside. It's
Yes.
not like, say, a school that I used to go to in the Midwest where it's a closed hall, closed climate, but they're just getting exposed all the time. And then just, if you look at the corners of Oak Meadow itself, I can't say for sure right next to the lot, but the groundwater supposedly is only 10 feet below the surface. And so that's a real concern if there's like a small fuel leak. I know most of us in Serrano, so I'm a resident of Serrano. Actually, my daughter was the one who had spoken the other day.
Did a great job.
Thank you. And the concern is that, even though if I know our water comes from Folsom Lake, but still the groundwater is probably a source for Folsom Lake. And so there's that place where I'm just, those are the two concerns I wanted to add if it hadn't been added to before.
Yeah. And I'm hoping, right, as we talk about it, this is just us talking about it. We don't have the draft yet or anything yet, that everyone will participate and help us with the comments.
I just want to mention something. I want to add to what Tim had said. The people in the community have to get together and look at the things that they think should be changed, not that we just don't like it, okay? And you have to look at the things that have to be changed and how they're going to impact your life, okay? So to come here just to talk, it's nothing, okay? So you have to form groups. If you got in touch with us, we have some knowledge where we could help you and point you in the direction that you should be going. But that's how you have to do it, okay? And I think that's what you had said also. So yes.
Yes, I completely agree. I think it's discussion in terms of what's the best solution. I think what's really fired up a lot of the residents is especially the addition of the Costco gas back into the plans.
Do you want to grab that microphone?
And so it gives the possibility of saying, even though I think definitely there are certain residents who express the view that they don't want the Costco at all, but if there had already been plans showing no Costco, which do exist in the country. I used to live down in Southern California in Orange County, and there's in one part of Irvine, one Costco with a gas station, and another part of Irvine without a gas station, and they both have good sales. I mean, so it's not to say it's not a possibility.
Can you grab that microphone? There we go. And then we'll do this.
Right, thank you very much, everybody. Good evening. This is Jan Sodore, Village A, Serrano resident here. If Karen Welch can hear us, then I appreciate that. And the audio and video worked great in this environment today. Thank you. Thank you very much for Board of Supervisor #1 here being here tonight. I appreciate that very much. So I'm happy to hear that he's meeting with Costco this Friday. One thing that he mentioned during his speech when he was going door to door in the El Dorado Hills, the many residents in El Dorado Hills were in favor of Costco. Well, I agree with that. I'm one of them. But if you read the memos and the people who are coming to the meetings, they don't want that dislocation. everybody's in favor of Costco bringing it closer to home, but not there. So yes, he heard right, but people had they placed a comma after this sentence. I want to go back to the gas station first. At first, Costco put that gas station in, and then they removed it from their next plan. Pressure from somewhere, from somebody or somehow. Now they're putting it back in. So why are we going through that exercise? What is Costco not telling us? Then we created 68 parking spots next to the gas station. What? Employee entrance is on the far south side of the building, next to the loading dock and trash compactor. They will not walk that far to clock in and back to their cars. Leave it open space. So why? So what is Costco telling us? Well, we're parking spots, the 68, which we don't really need, in my opinion, for whom there. The people shopping at Costco, they're not going to park across the street, pushing their car. And if they're pushing there because the parking lot is full, that's going to be a nice disaster on Silver Parkway. Anyway, what are parking spots? The 165,000 square foot warehouse plan shows currently 763 stalls. Handicaps are included with that. Do we know how many parking spots the county requires for such a size building? Well, I did some investigation on that. It seems for every 250 square foot, there has to be one parking spot. So for those people who want to grab their calculator out, I did it for you. 165,000 square foot building needs 660 stalls. That's what I found on the internet for the state of California. Maybe El Dorado County is different. Well, but this is warehouse according to the site, but check into that because the planning commissioner is here. One of them is at least here. 63 stalls right now on the plan. To suggest the plan, keep that in mind, everybody. Concept site plan. So they're offering already over extra parking spots while putting an extra 68 on the other side of the road. So plenty of more spots for me already. So what are they not telling us? At EDH 52 North, they're supposed to be a gas station location. Supposed to be a gas station location. There are 13 acres available after putting supposed gas station and parking spots who are not needed. What are their intentions with that open space? So what are Costco us? Under notes on this concept site plan, it shows stalls will be included, but nobody knows where they go, on rooftops, separate constructions, or maybe well, don't you explain to the surrounding HOA for people who want to put solar on their roof? So again, what is Costco telling us? At last, the traffic lights. I understood in the we've been in a couple of these meetings. Our director of the DOT, Rafael Ramirez, he was strongly against and plenty of issues with adding traffic lights on Silver Parkway. We even want the one on a track, but that's another problem for a different day. One of the supposed warehouses, supposed gas stations, they want to put a traffic light in, so people can travel from the gas station, cross Silver Valley Parkway into the warehouse, and vice versa to pick up gas or groceries after. In the future, which looks to me now that we are for sure for the next decade or longer, no money for because we are $18 million short on a budget deficit for next year or the coming year, will be extended towards Silver Valley Parkway. As John Davy mentioned several times in his presentations, if we would have done that today, starting tomorrow, it would be costing us maybe $60 million. By the when it would start, it would probably cost $120 million to put that extension from Back Lake Road in. So again, see what happens there. But there's a traffic light supposed to be on that crossing, Country Club Drive. So we're going to have 3 traffic lights in probably in 500 yards or so, or maybe 800 yards. Turns into another ADH cluster or something. I want to thank everybody here for the attention. Please send all your comments, your likings and not likings to edhcosco@edc.gov.us. And please also include your board supervisors on your emails. Eventually, it might end up very likely on their desk. Thank you so much, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, John. So Amy's had her hand up, and John's got to leave. Amy's had her hand up. I'm gonna get to Amy in a minute. Just let me get through this screen so that we can wrap our discussion. We're already late, but let me do this as quickly as I can. So the questions that were common is why do they want to do one so close to Folsom? And they've said since 2019 that the Folsom store is essentially maxed out for existing customers. And this is before they were building the 10,000 houses in Folsom South. So the other thing about why they would put it here is because Costco knows where their members live. They told us in 2019 that at this potential site, there are at least 50,000 members that are already existing members that live adjacent to it. And they mentioned in El Dorado Hills, Cameron Park, Rescue, Shingle Springs, Latrobe, and strangely enough, Folsom. And I talked to some Folsom traffic engineers, and they honestly think that we'll be getting some Folsom tax dollars if they build a Costco here, because people south of the freeway won't cross the freeway. They'll come up to the El Dorado Hills one. So whether that's true or not, who knows? The other things that people have asked is why can't they put it somewhere else? And they've been very consistent when we talk to them, is that Silver Valley is the only Class A interchange in the county that has capacity. The El Dorado Hills Boulevard and Latrobe Road off-ramps that we've been talking about tonight is not really a valid option for what they project their impacts would be and what they'd have to pay to change the interchange. Bass Lake Road, Cambridge Road, Cameron Park Drive, Ponderosa Road, Shingle Springs, all those interchanges would be about $50 to $70 million interchange improvements, and this was in 2019. So I don't think they're interested in that. Why this particular property? And again, we talked about it because it's already zoned for it, or a big box. Other sites would require a rezone. They couldn't identify other sites that they would be interested in the county based on where their customers, existing members already are at. Placerville's talked for many years about having Costco up off off of Missouri Flat with the new connector going in for 49. They're not interested in that because they don't see that as a good traffic circulation that they could mitigate. And also because Placerville only has 10,000 people live there and we have 50,000. I'll get to you in just a second. Let me just get through this real quick. And then the other question, no, the Costco stores are this close together. Well, Fresno has a couple that are within 3 to 6 miles. San Diego has several that are within 3 to 6 miles. And then I talked to my friend in Brooklyn who also shared that they have a multi-level parking garage and multi-level Costco. And that was the other question, is that, no, the Costco's have multi-level parking or multi-level warehouse stores. New York, New Jersey, Mexico, Asia, they have parking garages that are multiple floors. And they have multi-level warehouses where they have escalators for the carts. So we were just saying, my friend from Brooklyn sent me that. So, and then Tim just reminded me that Costco in San Francisco is multi-level as well. So it's not that it hasn't been done. It's four levels. So it's not that it hasn't been done. It's just not super common that we've seen here. So I got through all that. You've been waiting.
I got something first. Just so you know, yesterday at the Board of Supervisors, I think, Linda, you spoke on this matter, a revision to the CIP, Capital Improvements Program. Item number 4, one of the changes made at the, I believe it was a motion made by Supervisor Parlin and seconded by Supervisor Verkamp, approve the schedule change to White Rock Road widening 2 to 4 lanes from Post Street to south of Silver Valley Parkway to allow planning, environmental, and design work to begin in fiscal year 24-25 instead of previously, later in the time frame. I have to just ask the question, or wonder at least, whether this has anything to do with the Costco application, because obviously, and I just broke my glasses, obviously if Costco goes in, the existing road structure with Clarksville Crossing and 1 lane, it will just not work. So maybe this is a preliminary, at least start the planning just in case it is approved, so that if the ward road widening is required, the planning work is starting.
Well, and then they contribute to the fees.
It's a combination of things. What is it called, East Ridge?
Yes.
East Ridge going in, yeah.
That's contributing.
Yep.
Obviously, trying to plan, if Costco comes, to get ahead of the game, so we're not, we can't have, right now, that White Rock is backed up already with the current home, so combination of things, East Ridge, and then of course, anticipating if Costco comes in, that road's it's gotta be 4 lanes. And to, I think it was, forget whose point about the Folsom tax dollars coming up, they're gonna be coming up White Rock from the south side of 50 to shop at Costco, and I think that Costco will actually be easier to get to than going across the freeway.
So we have one back here, and then I'll come to Belinda, but I got 4 people we got to get to.
The Costco that was built at North of Thomas was installed and put through over the gas station. Finally, Costco agreed not to build a gas station, and they went right in. So I don't know how hard we all want to push for no gas station, but my guess is with all the stuff that you just put up there, they would cave on a gas station.
Oh, but that's a conversation to have too, when we're talking, doing the analysis and the review. Yeah. So Linda, I know you've been waiting, but I'm gonna get to these 4 after you. Stand by.
So I just want to talk generally, especially for anybody that hasn't been involved with projects before. This is the starting point of it. And there's a lot of other phases. So for those that were here Monday, I actually brought up the fact that they have entrances, exits onto Clarksville Crossing. I drive that regularly when I go to visit my grandkids, and I drove it yesterday. So my suggestion is go out into the properties and identify things that you want to ensure are covered as part of the environmental impact review, the EIR. That's what these comments are for right now, right? So the more you highlight and identify things, send those in. They can be part of the process, and then check them when they come back, right? Take pictures of things. There are for sure wetlands there. I'm really glad you brought up springs. Melinda and I both were like, there's springs all over El Dorado Hills. That's something that has to be analyzed and taken into account. So the more you do little bits, and by the way, your daughter was awesome, because she actually got up and talked about the wildlife that was there, right? And some of those natural resources. So those are some of the things. Identify things clearly that you want them to be able to cover. Know that there's going to be a time then of EIR preparation. It's going to come back as a draft EIR. That's when we then review all of the details, which is why the 45-day or 60-day comment. So it's a process. So stay engaged, participate as much as you can. Remember that all of this is a community forum. These guys are all volunteers. They don't work for the county, right? So this is our chance to be able to get together as people in our community and come up with information to put together and then figure out how they move forward. We can make proposals for things that say, in order to do this, you have to do this. There are some county requirements that cover us for some things as well. All of those things are going to be factored in, and that's what we'll put into the draft EIR feedback. So I hope that helps to ease a little bit of the concerns. I know it's been maybe 4 or 5 years, 5 years maybe, I've been working on projects, and at first I knew nothing. I know a little bit more now, but you learn as you go. So I encourage you to stay connected with us, stay connected with each other, everybody that's over there. Like I said, go out on the property and find the stuff that you want to take pictures and identify, and that's super helpful. And then at least you know you've provided feedback and we can do checkpoints. Okay, that was what I wanted.
I'm gonna get to the people online because they've been waiting forever. Amy, you had your hand up first, so if you want to go ahead and unmute.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, now we hear you.
Okay, sorry, thank you. And I just want to say thank you, John, because this is a much more thorough review of the site plan than we had on Monday. I just have a question. One is, do you have any idea of what the setback is from the school and the homes to the gas station? Because there isn't any kind of measurement on here, I don't think. And
Yeah,
then, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, you know what? Typically what we end up doing is we'll do a Google map and do a rough, but I haven't seen it documented anyplace yet.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question, I don't want to take up all the time, was about the country club extension. I know that it's not part of the project. I'm just wondering, there's all these driveways going into the school. If you're planning to have whoever the project manager is for that project come and kind of explain what's going on with this map, because it's odd that they sent it to everyone, but we're not allowed to ask questions about it. So
Yeah.
thank you.
All right. And to Amy's point, when, EDH 52 was still involved, we had discussions, and we know that Serrano Associates owns that small sliver of property right next to Oak Meadow School, and that is a big challenge there, getting in and out. Like all our schools, I'll say it again, but that one specifically just because of that road. So the discussion we had was like, well, if that property became available and was folded into this project, could we, at the Country Club extension, provide a signalized interchange to get parents and school buses in and out of the school property in a safer manner? So that's something they could do that would benefit the community. I don't know if they're interested in it, but we will continue to ask.
It's about 2 or 3 acres, I think.
Yeah.
And one of the suggestions was that could become the drop off or holding area for the kids, and then either over the street crossing, so the kids could safely cross over without having to deal with country club extension.
Yeah. So, but we'll ask when we get to that. And thank you, Amy, for your good questions and comments. Ivan, you should be able to unmute.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. My name's Ivan Ruiz. I've lived here on the ridge, just west of Silver Valley, just west of Clarksville Road, since 2004. So we've seen since Silver Valley was first constructed, and then the changes and all that. So I've seen how this road is used. I've seen how I have a lot of footage too, actually. I like to film. So I have footage of the way cyclists use these roads, Clarksville Road and Silver Valley. I have footage of bobcats in my backyard. My backyard, it just butts against that wildlife area between Silver Valley Road, Parkway and my house. But so I have footage of like animals and stuff. And I guess my question is, to help organize, and I've never really participated in anything like this. So I was wondering who I could talk to tomorrow who could maybe answer some of my questions and how I can start to connect with people. Because I do have a lot of footage of the way this area is used recreationally. I see people hike, in those empty lots, and a lot of wildlife, as I said.
So if you want to help in our review, when we actually start to get the documents back, like the draft EIR, we welcome anybody's participation, as little or as much as you'd like to do.
Okay.
And then I know that Amy's been very involved for several years now. Jans has been involved for a long time as well. If you want to email me, I have almost everybody's email address, and
Yeah.
we could put people together that way. But I do want to remind everybody, the point of APAC is that, we're not here to deny a project or approve a project. We're just here to see what's proposed and how we can make what's proposed better. There are several times we get to a result where we just go, hey, you know what? We don't see that there's a significant benefit based on what's proposed, and the mitigations aren't being done. So then we will say that, we provide a non-support, but we're not. So like, as an example, if it was going to be appealed, it wouldn't be us doing it. If there's a lawsuit, it would not be us doing it. So
Okay.
And that's to Linda's point, community groups are valuable. So if you guys want to get together and you don't have each other's contact information, send it to me, and then we could see who wants to participate, and you guys can organize that way.
Yes, that would be great. If anyone's out there, I could just, if they want to scribble my phone number down too, that's an opportunity. I don't mind sharing it. It's 916-221-0564. And then I'll just send you my email as well. I'll email you online. Well, thank you guys. And yeah, I'm not completely against Costco being built. I do have a problem with like the gas station, and just also I want to see some mitigation. You know, some safety for cyclists and hikers and wildlife as well. So, all right, thank you.
All right,
Bye.
Simon. Laura, you should be able to unmute. It's in my head, right? Yeah, see.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much. This is Laura Vitani. Thank you so much for all that you guys do. I'm glad we're able to have this discussion, but my biggest concern with the Costco is also the re-addition of the gas station. My children do attend Oak Meadow School, and I wanted to make sure everybody's aware that what Oak Meadow is right next to this. What is going to be facing this gas station is the kindergarten playground. This is where our 4, 5, and 6-year-old children play. And like Andrew said earlier, they eat outside. They spend a lot of time outside, and this will be directly in front of them. And we're not talking about a single gas station. We're talking about a Costco gas station. Everybody's seen the Folsom Costco gas station. It is thousands of cars every day. And that would be right next to all of our children. I would say that we need to push that gas station as far as we can. If they bought this whole land, it needs to find a way. Maybe we can have the entrance and the exit further away, but the gas station needs to be further away from the playground if this is going to happen, or the gas station should be scrapped like it was in the beginning. Also, I just wanted to say if the Country Club Drive is and all of that interchange by Oak Meadow is not part of this project, it shouldn't be on these plans that were given to all of us. There is no stoplight right there on these plans. That stoplight doesn't exist, and there's no approval. So unless Costco's putting that stoplight there, it shouldn't be on these plans. Unless Costco is building that interchange into Oak Meadow, it shouldn't be on these plans. I mean, another thing is in California, we're talking about California's committed to banning gas cars by 2035. Why are we proposing a huge gas station here? It just doesn't make sense to me in the fact that we're preparing all of our vehicles, and a lot of people in El Dorado Hills drive Teslas. We're preparing all of our vehicles to no longer have gas, but are proposing a huge gas station next to a school. It doesn't sit well with me. It makes me worried, not just for my children, because, in a few years, they're not going to be at Oak Meadow anymore. All the children in our neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Laura. So we're way over in time, so we're going to wrap this up with this part. We have a couple small items to get to. And by small, I mean I'll talk too much, but let me put this back up here. Sorry, guys. There we go. Sorry. So we talked about that. So these are the updates. They're the same as essentially last month. Projects that are in progress. Gateway El Dorado Specific Plan had their pre-app, their J6 application hearing at the Board of Supervisors, where they talk about their project and then they get feedback from the board. It's up to them whether they want to move forward based on that feedback, change the project, or not do the project. If they submit a formal application, we know, it's in the works. So, but that was a discussion. Generation Green Valley, the draft EIR was issued. We're still waiting for the final. There's been no updates. Town and Country Village, we heard tonight, potentially in July. Their draft EIR was issued. They were going to be here tonight to talk about the interchange improvements for Highway 50, but they shared their data with Lime Rock and Marble Valley, and they thought they didn't want to come and just repeat what they had shared with the other applicants. So, so they deferred for tonight, but they'll probably be back before their hearings at the board or at the Planning Commission. We just mentioned Marble Valley, Lime Rock Valley, same thing. They have their draft EIR issued. They were here last month, talked about the interim interchange improvements at Highway 50 and Bass Lake Road. So stand by. There'll be more opportunities to do some analysis and write some documents. Creekside Village Specific Plan, the WIN applicants, they were here at our meeting in January, if I remember correctly, and they had suggested that we should see the draft ER sometime this spring, and so we're waiting for that. They've been very engaged with our standing committees, to the point of meeting multiple times a month to get their feedback.
Okay,
and
I already
say,
talked, so I'm probably, did you hear me?
I heard you say.
yeah.
Saying it, yeah.
Well, I'll fix that right now. Okay, there we go. So, and so that's Creekside Village, and then obviously Costco we just discussed. So, Toronto Village M5, we talked about that a little bit tonight. Mr. Getz was providing some background on that. We did have a couple members form a subcommittee and talk with the applicant for Serrano M5, and so it's Appian Way, intersection of San Giovese at the San Giovese gate. They're talking about, originally it was a 10-unit development on the north and west side, sort of. So we talked about that. They're proposing to change this to, instead of 10 units, have 20 units and have them be sort of halfplex, potentially townhome type of development. So we had members of the community, as well as some of our volunteers, that were very concerned about the impacts to the road and the planning there around the project. It will be, it'll be at the Planning Commission tomorrow. We won't go deep into this because our hour is late, but this is sort of where it's at. They have basically a court at both ends, and they'll have the 20 units around it. And they do have, I think, I've already forgotten. It's 8.4 acres. So when they do their entitlements, where'd it go? It ends up being 2 acres of open space, and the remaining 6 is for the actual housing. And so, Linda, thank you for all that work. Is there anything that you want to throw in on this, or?
Bob brought it up earlier. So for the planning commissioners, what we wrote up isn't addressed to the planning commissioner. It's more addressed to the county, because actually there was no public meeting. So there was no opportunity for us to be able to provide input except to the planning commission. So that's why they're kind of extensive, and lots of them are things that actually just weren't answered easily in all of the documents that were put on the project itself. So that's just so,
Yeah.
so Bob brought that up earlier and is like, well, I didn't identify this as a planning commission issue. Really, this is for the county or the applicant to respond to, because they were things that we didn't find within the documentation.
Yeah, and there's a lot of concern in the community around there. The thing about this too, and so there were a lot of projects documents added in Track It, 20 documents after our subcommittee started talking to the applicant. Today, there are no documents. And then, so a week before the meeting, now there's documents. So they're now all the APAC website. That was fun to do the other night. So we do have the subcommittee letter. There's a link here where we post the slides, but if you go to the project page on the APAC website, the subcommittee letter is posted there as well. It's also in Track It for the planning commissioners to look at, because we did submit it as a public comment. So that's that one. Yeah. So, and we do, sorry, we throw it to everyone. So you're lucky you didn't get a phone call, so, but, no, yeah. So, the other object, one of the other, items on the planning commission's agenda tomorrow, again, we have this much bandwidth and there's this many projects. So this is a project that was an approved, self-storage proposal. It was approved, then there was litigation between, I think, District Church, who sold them the land, and the project, or the applicant and the owner. So it was tied up in litigation. There's a new use proposed, and since it was approved as a self-storage project, we don't have time. So here it is. It's the El Dorado Hills hobby condos, and they're basically, it's condos that could be leased or bought. Settle down. Yeah, no. But basically, it's over by District Church. It's on the hill above where White Rock curves around behind District Church and Town Center. They describe it as 5 buildings. I believe they're pretty much attached. There's private gates into each of the condo, not gates, but roll-up doors and person-level doors. So the thing they specified, it's essentially for They're gonna have car lifts, workbenches. It's literally a hobby. If you have something nice you wanna put someplace not in your garage, they're interested in talking to you. So they're talking about 60 units inside this, 800 square feet to 1,300 square feet. Buildings will be 25 feet tall, roll-up doors, person doors. And then they're gonna have an HOA and for CCNRs because you can own one of these units or lease it. So they'll form an HOA essentially to cover their CCNRs, how they interact with each of the properties. No kitchen facilities and no overnight staying inside of it. Here's a bunch to read about it. So that'll be before the planning commission tomorrow. And this is just some of the elevations for this. Is there anything on this that you want to chime in on? Okay. Well, thank you, planning commission, for looking at this because we didn't have time to. And so that's just sort of the rough layout of what the project proposed. It will be gated and walled so that it'll be private and they'll have security. So that's there. And then Melinda's been waiting all night for this. I'm sorry. So we talked last month about the Mormon Island Cemetery, which is an historic cemetery. And there's been some water intrusion there. The El Dorado Hills storage project, which we looked at, I want to say 2018, and we had concerns, and Melinda raised this in 2018.
2019, actually.
Was it 19? It was approved in
I
19, right?
printed, I found the original comments to you, so.
Well, we talked to them like 3 times before they went to get the project approval. But we did say, hey, we're concerned about the runoff and the impact on this historic cemetery, which is literally right behind their project. And so we did see some photos, thank you for sharing, of there's some water intrusion. And we mentioned this last month. And Supervisor Ferrero was very good. The next day he was asking, because the cemetery is now from the CAO's office, APAC County.
Yeah, well, and a lot of funny things have sort of happened as a result of this. We were told by someone at the county that it was grave diggers that were doing this. People were out there in the rainstorm trying to dig graves up for some reason. So what they didn't address is that prior to this, when we had the cemetery committee at, that's why Mike is here too, is that I kept reporting. I went out to the cemetery and there were holes, mystery holes, and they were the county staff tried to just say, well, they're animals or they're this or they're whatever. And they always had an excuse of why these holes were appearing. Oh, it's collapse of the grave or it's this. And again, it was just like, no one would listen. And I'd say, well, let's leave a hole open and see what happens. I think it's from the water. They filled them back in every time, they weren't going to let it come out. So I don't know, but to me, somebody sent me a picture of the height of this, the storage facility. And it's like 4 to 5 feet higher than the road next to the cemetery. Anyone wants to see it. It's very high. It's like logic. You put asphalt down and you have water runoff and you have lower land down here. What do you think is going to happen? It's going to go over and disturb the cemetery. It already had been doing it. So my point is that we need to, on all of these projects, look further than just the project boundary. If we can even try, what's next door? If you've got the counties for historical tourism, you're not going to have any left if you let this kind of stuff go in. The other thing is they could have put, COAs on the storage facility and said, if there's damage to the cemetery, you'll pay for it. You'll pay for repairs. Now, we as the taxpayers will be paying for all the repairs to this cemetery forever. And this is the second one now. So now we'll have 2 cemeteries that we will have to repair forever. And I think everybody knows about St. Michael's Church and what happened there. But so again, this could happen again and again and again, and we could end up with no historic buildings and no cemeteries left. But it's really, just to me, and I put my personal side on it. One of my best friends is buried in that cemetery in 1996. And so I have a personal connection to it too, even before I went on the cemetery board. So all of this, I think you add it all together. It's like, to me, you've got to consider beyond the boundaries. And so what I'm saying is that we've got a unique geology here, and I've just recently went to a meeting of a groundwater association, and they're very interested in this, what's going on up here. We have what's called stacked springs. The reason the golf course has so many water hazards is because they had to put the spring water somewhere. And so they piped it over, and that's why all those things are there. And that's why we shouldn't be planning to put anything on there, because you can't build on springs. You're going to collapse. All this whole area, you look across the hill, you know.
Reservoir back here at the turn of the
Yes, there
cent-
was
yeah.
a reservoir on, the archery range has rock fences on it. Those were to keep the cows out going to the reservoir that was there. The reservoir was entirely spring fed. It had no creek coming into it. And so, again, if you look at the water history of this area, all these projects should have a hydrogeologist on, and that's one thing to ask for sure on the Costco project. And any of these other big projects, Marble Valley, Lime Rock, any of them, we should have the applicants should be hiring somebody to put that into the process. And there's something wrong if you're afraid to have the hydrogeologist come out there and tell you, you know, what's going on. Are you going to have problems? Are you going to have springs? And so I think it's a really important issue, even though it's only a cemetery, maybe no one cares about it, but I think it's an illustration of what you should care about and look beyond. And we all should be looking beyond what's next door, you know, and not that you could trespass on, you know, people's property, but look it up on old maps, see what's around it and do something, you know, and bring that up as an issue, because otherwise we'll have nothing left. I was really glad. He's a great example of bringing up what are the things over, you know, on the, you know, the road there that everybody's driven by a million times. And I've been asked, I don't know how many times about, but it's quite fine. I mean, it's better they're asking than not, you know? And so that's my point. And again, when the gentleman back here was talking about there's water problems, there's dirty water, it's water from the springs. I'm sure that's come up there. And I know myself, I have a seep in my backyard and it goes down, you know, fortunately we're our house and everything's above it, but other people in our neighborhood, people have to put in pumps. They have to do all kinds of stuff because of the amount of water on that hill over there. And so nobody talks about it. It's like a dirty little secret because you don't want to lose value of your house, you know, by saying that. But there's so many people. There's water. There's one street that has water running on it in the gutters all year round because the spring drops into it. And so it's really something very serious, and it is a different geology, like I said. And I have the book that talks about the guy that built the golf course, and he talks about the big problem they had with stacked springs, is what he called them. And he, again, the way they solved it was to pipe everything. So we don't even know where the water sources are on that piece of property. That's why it's not a good purchase.
And then the response that we did hear back was that facilities went out and inspected the graves, took pictures. They believe the issues are not related to drainage. There are some large amounts of dirt that was disturbed. It appears that someone was digging up graves. So they reported this to the sheriff's office, and they plan to go out and fix these.
Yeah, that's great mitigation, right?
But
the sheriff come right out.
and to be fair too, should the CAO's office be the one responsible for maintaining the cemeteries? I mean, I think it ended up with them, as opposed to them having the competency and the capacity to deal with it. It's not something that's very common.
Well, first of all, nobody digs up graves in the middle of a super, you know, atmospheric river pouring down, which is what, you know, I mean, I think they have better things to do. Plus, people aren't buried with much, you know, and these are transferred graves that were underneath Folsom Reservoir.
Yeah.
And I'm sure at that point, if there were jewelry or anything else, it went away.
I did talk to Adam Bain at DOT, and he said that on the surface, their first look was that there are stormwater issues. I think that's a fair way to say it. Stormwater concerns with EDH storage, but he said it seems to be on the property, not off the property. They obviously will have to look, right?
When I went out there, there were people, the first time I went out there, there were, it looked like professionals of some kind. They had these rods that were bent at both ends, and they were measuring in what appeared to be their storage tanks. I'd have to look at the plans for the facility, but where they were standing, they were at opposite ends on Shadowfax, measuring the depth of water in the tanks. So I think they got a problem. I think and maybe if they've got a problem, maybe they should be the ones to play the overflow. They should be the ones to pay for it.
Again, we'll ask again and see if
Yeah.
there's any
But
new
it's
developments.
just, it's just something that, like I said, I don't want to harp on it too much, but I think it's
Yeah.
a wider issue.
And so, as Linda describes it, this is a project that's approved, and we provided feedback saying that, that was one of our concerns. Traffic was one of our concerns. But it's approved, it's done, it's built, so now where's the go back and how do you mitigate for something maybe that wasn't caught? So,
Yeah, well, and, again, I mean, they were told all these things in advance and that the county didn't apply any of this, and they could have put conditions of approval easily on that and said, you're by the cemetery, you say you're gonna have tanks for it. Okay, prove it. If you're gonna not interfere with the cemetery, then, you agree to pay for damages you do. And otherwise, now it's our taxpayers will be paying for it.
we'll keep checking.
One, I think it's disrespectful to our ancestors, or not our ancestors, but ancestors of people and to the dead. I'm sorry, you
People are
just don't
still-
allow situations like this to continue. And I don't know whether storage or County or the CAO is going to be able to do, something has to be done. It's just not right. And I agree with that. And before we go on, John, I know you're around to wrap up. You mentioned bandwidth. I look around this room and I know a lot of people left. I know people online have left. There are 6 people I can see in this room who have made substantial comments over the last 10 years or more on any of these projects that are already been built or being considered. We really do need more volunteers to step up when it comes to looking at these draft environmental impact reports. As I said Monday night, some of these ones, Marble Valley, Marble Valley, 5,000 pages, guys. That's tough to read in 45 days or even 60 days. And we need to break it up. We need to have people, you don't have to read the whole damn thing. Some of us will do that, but we need people who will specialize, looking at the traffic situation, looking at environmental air quality. When I see the comments that were made on the Costco project, I would say 80% of them mentioned the air quality concerns they had from the gas station being close to the school and the benzene, and the winds blowing the benzene and gases onto the school property. We need those people not to just show up and make a 10-minute comment or 5-minute comment here. We need you to get hold of the environmental impact report. It'll be on our website. It'll be on the county's website. You'll be able to get hold of it. You're going to have to read about 50 or 60 pages probably on emissions, hazardous pollution, waste, and all this other stuff. And you're going to have to dig into it and say, does this make sense to me? You have to take a look at it, and you have to go look at charts and what the county and what the state requires and all that. It does take a lot of time and effort, but we need more than 5 or 7 people to constantly stepping up to the plate. We need more people to step up and take an active role in the developments that happen in our community. Done. I'm done.
I might have heard that message before. So with that, remind everybody that if you have comments that you want to make and you can't be at the meeting, you can email them in. Email addresses on here and on the website. I want to remind everybody, the Mohana group did reach out and said that they have their active transportation plan sort of more formalized as part of their project for the town country village at El Dorado. If you want to go on March 15th at 9 a.m., the Mohana Ranch, they'll have some exhibits and talk about the bicycle and the walking and the hiking paths that they're looking at. It's really quite extensive and they've done a lot of work on it. So if you want to go in and provide comments to them or just see what it's about, they ask that you RSVP. We put it on our Facebook page because more people see that. So it's info at townandcountryvillageeldorado.com and just RSVP and say how many people you might be bringing with you. And they've been very proactive talking, not just to APAC, but to residents in the Bass Lake area where I live. So we did want to share that tonight. Our next meeting is April 9th, 6:30 p.m. I have no idea what we'll talk about. It'll be something. But if there are no go backs, I believe At this late hour, we're adjourned. Thank you for spending your time with us tonight and look forward to seeing you at future meetings.